Hello, this is Miss Melissa. I'm going to be reading from the book Celtic Fairy Tales, illustrated by Isabel Brent and retold by Neil Phillip. He wrote an introduction to the book, and I want to read that part to you to show you just something about the story I'm going to be reading today. The introduction says, an Irish proverb tells us, a tune is more precious than the song of birds, and a tale more precious than the wealth of the world. Judging from the richness of their storytelling traditions and their music, the Celts have always believed this. To them, the world we can imagine has often seemed more real than the one in which we must live. We can see this in the ancient Irish tales, in which heroes such as Bran, son of Feeble, following some mystical vision, set sail from the world of reality into the world of dream. When Bran finally sails home, no one can remember him, though he is told his name does feature in an ancient tale. When one of his men jumps down from his ship to the shore, he crumbles to ash, as if he had been dead for hundreds of years. So Bran tells the people on the shore his story, and sets sail again to wander the seas forever. Nowhere in the world is the phrase wonder tale more suitable for the traditional fairy tale than in Ireland and Scotland, where adults and children alike would sit around the fireside night after night as the storyteller unwound a golden thread of narrative, in words hovering on the brink of poetry. Some of the stories were short and witty, but many were long and full of adventure, infused with the transforming magic of the imagination. Story collector Hector MacLean described the usual setting for storytelling in the middle of the 19th century. He said, in the islands of Beara, the recitation of tales during the long winter nights is still very common. The people gather in crowds to the houses of those whom they consider good reciters to listen to their stories. They appear to be fondest of those tales which describe exceedingly rapid changes of place in very short portions of time. During the recitation of these tales, the emotions of the reciters are occasionally very strongly excited, and so also are those of the listeners, almost shedding tears at one time and giving way to loud laughter at another. One crofter fisherman of Barra said that in his youth he went to listen to the same storyteller almost every winter's night for 15 years, and that he hardly ever heard the same story twice. The telling of a really complicated tale might be drawn out over as many as 24 evenings. How did the storytellers remember such long involved tales? Talking to the South Uist storyteller Donald Alastair Johnson in 1973, folklorist D.A. MacDonald learned that Mr. Johnson visualized his stories unfolding before him, like a film passing in front of you. He said, "You've got to see it as a picture in front of you, or you can't remember it properly." This Celtic storytelling tradition can be traced quite a long way back. An 8th century text tells us that Mongan, son of Fiachna, king of East Ulster in the early 6th century, was told a story by his bard, Forgall, every night from Samhain to Beltane, that is, from the 1st of November to the 1st of May. The Celts as a people had emerged by 500 BC as a force in Central Europe. The Romans called the heartlands of the Celts Gaul, a name that still reverberates in the ancient Celtic kingdom of Galicia, now part of Spain. Gradually, the Celts were pushed to the western fringes of Europe, from where these stories come: Ireland, Scotland, Wales, the Isle of Man, Cornwall, Brittany. And they used these last dominions as a springboard into the New World, taking their love of stories and music to new lands: Australia, New Zealand, Patagonia, Canada, the USA. The tales in this book can only be a sampling of the treasure trove of Celtic stories, but I hope that the wonders they reveal will encourage a new generation to appreciate the great Celtic heritage of fairy tales, and to settle down of a winter's evening in the hope that the storyteller will once more say, "There was a king and a knight, as there was and will be, and as grows the fir tree, some of it crooked and some of it straight." There is magic in those words, and magic in the air as they are spoken. Neil Phillip, the editor. Here is one of the stories from this book, Celtic Fairy Tales, illustrated by Isabel Brent and retold by Neil Phillip. The King of Ireland's Son. There was a king's son in Ireland long ago. and he went out in the snow with his gun and his dog. He killed a raven, and the raven fell onto the snow. I will never eat 2 meals at one table or sleep 2 nights in one house until I find a woman whose hair is as black as the raven's wing, whose skin is as white as the snow, and whose cheek is as red as the raven's blood, he swore. There was only one woman like that, and she was a prisoner of the king of poison in the eastern world. So the next day he set out. Money was scarce, but he took 20 pounds for the journey. He had not gone far before he came upon a funeral, and he said he would walk 3 steps alongside the coffin. He had not walked the 3 steps before a man stepped up and set down a bill on the coffin for an unpaid debt of 5 pounds. The dead man's sons and daughters started weeping and wailing, because it was the law in Ireland in those days that even a dead man must pay his debts before he could be buried. When the king's son heard this, he reached into his pocket and paid the 5 pounds. After that, he said he would walk as far as the church. At the church gate, another man set down a bill for 5 pounds, and the king's son said, "If I have paid 1 5 pounds, I can pay 2, and paid the debt." So now he only had 10 pounds left. He went on his way, and he had not gone far before he met a short green man who asked him where he was going. He said that he was seeking a woman in the eastern world. The short green man asked him, did he want a servant? "Yes," said the king's son, "but I don't have much money. What wages would you be wanting?" "The first kiss from your bride if you should win her," said the short green man, and the king's son agreed to that. They went on their way, and had not gone far when they met another man. This man was pointing his gun into the far distance, but they could not see what he was aiming at. "What are you doing?" asked the king's son. "I am going to shoot the blackbird that is in the eastern world to have it for my supper," said the eye man. "You had better come along with us," said the short green man. It was not long before they met another man. This one had his ear to the ground. "What are you doing?" asked the king's son. "I am listening to the grass growing in the eastern world," said the ear man. "You had better come with us," said the short green man. Farther along they met another man who was herding a field of hares. This man had one leg crossed over with a foot slung over his shoulder. "Why are you hopping about like that?" asked the king's son. "If I unhooked this leg, I would walk so fast that I would soon be out of sight," said the footman. "You had better come with us," said the short green man. A while later they met another man who was turning a windmill by snorting through one nostril. He was keeping the other nostril closed with his finger. "Why do you have your finger on your nose?" asked the king's son. "Oh, if I were to blow with both nostrils, I would sweep the windmill right up into the air," said the blowman. "You had better come with us," said the short green man. Then they met another man who was breaking stones by the side of the road. He did not have any hammer, but was breaking the stones with one of his thighs. "Why are you doing that?" asked the king's son. "If I used both my thighs, I would grind the stones to powder," said the thigh man. "You had better come with us," said the short green man. So the son of the king of Ireland, the short green man, the eye man, the ear man, the footman, the blowman, and the thigh man all went forward together until the evening came and the end of the day. They came to the house of a giant, and the short green man said, "We shall stop here tonight." He went up to the door and rat-tat-tat-tatted with his stick. The giant came to the door, saying, "I feel the smell of a melodious lying Irishman in the air." The short green man said, "I am no melodious lying Irishman. I am come to tell you that my master is coming, and that if he finds you here, he will strike your head off." As he spoke, the short green man was growing bigger and bigger and bigger, until he was nearly the size of the giant's house. "Is your master as big as you?" asked the giant fearfully. "Bigger," said the short green man. "Help me hide until the morning," begged the giant. So the short green man put the giant under lock and key, and went back to tell the king's son that the coast was clear. The son of the king of Ireland, the short green man, the eye man, the ear man, the foot man, the blow man, and the thigh man spent the night in the giant's castle, 1/3 of it telling fairy tales, 1/3 of it telling tales of the hero Finn McCool, and 1/3 of it in sweet slumber. In the morning they left, and the short green man went back to release the giant. But before he would undo the lock, he asked the giant to give him the old black cap that was under his bed. "I will give you a brand new top hat I have never worn," said the giant. "I would be ashamed to give you the old black cap." But the short green man insisted. "If you don't give me the old black cap, my master will come back and strike your head off." "In that case, I shall give it to you," said the giant. The short green man undid the lock, and the giant gave him the old black cap, saying, "If you put this on your head, you can see everyone, but no one can see you." The next night they spent at a second giant's house, 1/3 of the night in telling fairy tales, 1/3 in telling tales of Finn McCool, and 1/3 in sweet slumber. This time when they left, the short green man asked the giant for the old slippers that were under his bed. The giant offered him a new pair of boots, but he insisted, and the giant told him, "If you put on these slippers and say, 'Hi over,' they will take you anywhere you want." The next night they spent at a third giant's house, 1/3 of the night in telling fairy tales, 1/3 in telling tales of Finn McCool, and 1/3 in sweet slumber. This time the short green man asked the giant for the rusty sword that was under his bed. "I would not give that sword to anyone," said the giant. But the short green man insisted. "If you don't give me the rusty sword, my master will come back and strike your head off." "You shall have the sword," said the giant. "It will cut through anything, even iron, and will not stop until it touches the earth." So the King of Ireland's son, the short green man, the eye man, the ear man, the foot man, the blow man, and the thigh man went forward again until evening came and the end of the day. And that night they arrived in the eastern world, where lived the lady with hair as black as a raven's wing, skin as white as snow, and cheeks as red as blood. This is a picture of her, as the artist has drawn it. The king's son and his companions got lodgings in the castle of the King of Poison, where the lady was. The castle was all set around with skulls on spikes. "What do you want?" asked the lady. "I want to marry you," said the king's son. "If you want to marry me, you must free me from enchantment," said the lady. "But I must tell you, all the skulls that you see around the castle walls are the skulls of men who have tried to set me free. If you fail, your skull will join theirs." "I'm not afraid," said the King of Ireland's son. So the lady gave him a pair of scissors. "This is the first test," she said. "You must give those scissors back to me in the morning." "That is not much of a test," said the King of Ireland's son. But in the night, the lady placed a pin of slumber under his pillow, so that as soon as he went to bed, he fell fast asleep, and then she came and took the scissors and gave them to the King of Poison. If the short green man had not been keeping watch, the king's son would have been lost. But the short green man put the old black cap on his head and the old slippers on his feet, and took the rusty sword in his hand and said, "Hi over!" and in a flash found himself in the room of the King of Poison. He took the scissors back and gave them to the king's son. In the morning, the lady asked, "Do you have my scissors?" And the king's son replied, "Yes, lady, I have." So next night she gave him a comb and said that he must give it back to her in the morning. Again she set the pin of slumber under his pillow, stole back the comb, and gave it to the King of Poison. Again the short green man put on his hat, his slippers, and his rusty sword, and stole it back. In the morning, when the king's son awoke, he felt for the comb, but it was gone. "I've lost it," he cried. But the short green man said, "Don't worry, I have it." And when the king's son gave the lady the comb, she was full of wonder. On the third night, she said to the son of the King of Ireland, "Tomorrow morning, you must give me the head of the man who cuts his hair with the scissors and combs his hair with the comb. If you do not, you must lose your own head." That night she gave the scissors and the comb to the King of Poison, and told him to guard them with his life. So the King of Poison hid them inside a great stone, and locked it behind 80 locks, and sat beside it all night long. The lady set the pin of slumber under the pillow again, and the king's son fell fast asleep. But the short green man put on his old black cap, and his old slippers, and his rusty sword. "Hie over," he said, and in an instant he was beside the great stone. He could see the King of Poison, but the King of Poison could not see him, because he was wearing his cap of invisibility. The short green man drew the rusty sword. With his first stroke he cut through the locks. With his second stroke he cut through the stone. And with his third stroke he cut off the King of Poison's head. When the short green man returned, he woke the king's son and gave him the head, the scissors, and the comb. In the morning the lady came and asked, "Do you have the head?" And the king's son replied, "I have the head, and the scissors, and the comb." And he threw her the head of the King of Poison. The lady gave out a great shriek of anger. "I will never marry you unless you can send a runner who will fetch 3 bottles of the water of life from the well of the western world, and fetch them quicker than the runner I will send. If my runner comes back first, you must lose your head." The lady sent for an old hag, and gave her 3 empty bottles to fetch water from the well of the western world. The short green man asked for 3 bottles to be given to the footman who had been herding the field of hares. The footman and the hag set off together. The footman unhooked his foot from over his shoulder, and soon he was out of sight. He got to the well of the western world, filled his bottles, and was halfway home, while the hag was only halfway there. He greeted her, and she said, "Sit down and rest a while. They are already married, so there's no need to break your heart running." So he settled down, and she put a slumber pin under his head, so he fell asleep. Then she spilled out the water of life from his bottles, and went on her way. The short green man said, "The footman is a long time coming. Earman, put your ear to the ground and tell me what is happening." "I can hear the hag coming," said the earman, "but the footman is fast asleep. I can hear him snoring." So the short green man asked the eye man if he could see where the footman was. "He's lying asleep by the road with a slumber pin under his head." "Put your gun to your eye and shoot the pin away." The eye man put his gun to his eye and shot the pin from under the footman's head. The footman woke with a start and saw that his bottles were empty and he must go back to the well. As he set off, he was passed by the hag on her way back to the castle. The eye man said, "The hag is coming." The short green man said to the blow man, "Try to stop her." The blow man blew out of his right nostril. It buffeted the hag, but she kept on coming. He blew with his left nostril. It swayed the hag, but she kept on coming. At last he blew with both nostrils and sent her sailing through the air, all the way back to the well of the western world. The footman came running up with the 3 bottles of water, and the son of the King of Ireland had won the race. The lady let out another shriek of anger. She said, "I will never marry you until you have walked 3 miles without shoes or stockings over sharp steel needles." And she had sharp needles set point up over a road 3 miles long. The short green man said to the thigh man, "Go and blunt those." The thigh man went along them with 1 thigh and reduced them to stumps. He went along them with 2 thighs and reduced them to powder. And the King of Ireland's son walked along the road as free and easy as a fine young lad on a country stroll. So he had won his wife, with hair as black as a raven's wing, skin as white as snow, and cheeks as red as blood. They were married then, and the short green man said, "Don't forget, I am to have the first kiss." So the short green man kissed the bride, and all the poisonous serpents that the King of Poison had put in her with his spells came out of her mouth. If the king's son had kissed her, he would have been bitten to death. Then the short green man said to the son of the king of Ireland, "You can go with your wife now. I am the man who was in the coffin that day when you paid the 10 pounds so that my body could be buried. These others are servants whom God has sent to you to repay your kindness." Then the short green man, and the eye man, and the ear man, and the foot man, and the blow man, and the thigh man went away, and the son of the king of Ireland never saw them again. He brought his wife home, with her hair black as a raven's wing, her skin white as snow, and her cheeks red as blood, and they spent a happy life with one another. And that's the story of the King of Ireland's son, taken from the book Celtic Fairy Tales, illustrated by Isabel Brent, and retold by Neil Phillip.